Good day everyone, my name is Charles G. Espinosa from English 2B, and today I'm going to tell you the story of Beowulf and also introduce to you the Caesura and Kennings. So before we start, let me give you a brief background about the story of Beowulf.
Beowulf is an Old English epic poem consisting of 3,182 alternative lines. It is one of the most important and most often translated works of Old English literature. Its language is West Saxon dialect of Old English. The story was translated to Latin by Grimmer Johnson Perklin in 1815. However, the author of Beowulf is actually an anonymous Anglo-Saxon poet referred by scholars as the Beowulf poet. The story started when Hrothgar became the king of Danes. He fought and became a victor of many battles. At one point, he decided to build a mid-hall no one in the world has ever seen or imagined, and he called it Heorot. Hrothgar handed out golds and treasure at every grand feast. Hrothgar's people lived in joy until Grendel the demon began his crime. Grendel is a monster exiled from mankind by the gods. He is believed to be race of Cain, the man punished for murdering his brother. One night, after the beer party, the Danes settled in the hall. Grendel grabbed 30 warriors and went home laughing. At dawn, everyone learned of Grendel's strength. Upon witnessing the bloody footprints, Hrothgar sat sadly. Ever since that night, Grendel took more warriors. The halls became empty at night, but still lively at day. The killing continued for 12 winters. A lot of people proposed what to do about Grendel. One proposed they went to temples, one suggested to worship their idols, and one suggested to ask the devil for help. A warrior in another kingdom heard of Grendel's slaughter. His name is Beowulf. He is the strongest man alive in that day. He is mighty and noble. He called for a ship, selected 14 warriors, and sailed to help the people of Hrothgar. Upon arriving, they stood on the shore, wearing their war clothes, and thanked God for an easy trip. Hrothgar's warrior, the guard of the shore, rode his horse and went to ask Beowulf and his warriors of their identity. At first, the guard of the shore praised their presence and complimented their armors, and then the guard asked their lineage and intention. Beowulf spoke about Hrothgar's enemy in the night, who works violence and slaughter. Upon realizing their identity, the guard of the shore led them to Heorot. As they entered the hall, Hrothgar's messenger described them as brave strangers. The messenger said that I expect you are here for adventure, not asylum. Beowulf replied by introducing himself. Wulfgar, one of Beowulf's warriors, wants to seek audience from their king. They went to where Hrothgar sat, and Hrothgar quickly realized who Beowulf is. Beowulf went to Hrothgar to ask not to refuse his help. They spent most of the time with Hrothgar telling Beowulf about what happened to his men. Beowulf's men had a feast while he and Hrothgar boast on each other of their victory in their battles. After some time, Hrothgar went to take a rest in the night. At the end of the feast, Beowulf made a speech to his men and proclaimed to fight Grendel with only might. As the night is not young anymore, every warrior who guarded the hall have already slept, except Beowulf. Grendel easily entered the hall by simply pushing the doors a little bit and started eating a man. After he was finished eating the man, Grendel approached Beowulf. However, Beowulf grasped Grendel's hand tightly and broke his finger, Grendel tried to fight back, but he did not expect the might of Beowulf, so he tried to flee. However, before being able to flee, Beowulf ripped his arm off and lets him go, knowing that even Grendel the demon would die from losing a limb. Grendel's arm is the proof of Beowulf's victory. The warriors followed Grendel's trails, which led them to the water monster's place. Upon discovering the location, they returned to Beowulf and joined the celebration. The next morning, Hrothgar talked to his men while looking at Grendel's arm. Meanwhile, in the feast, Beowulf told everyone present the story of his battle with Grendel. Hrothgar arrived at the feast and gave Beowulf a battle flag, a banner, helmet, armor, sword, and 8 gold-plated horses. In the middle of the feast, Hrothgar approached his poet and told him to recite songs and poems for entertainment. After the feast, the guards prepared beds and cushions for Beowulf's warriors, but the warriors left with their gears, saying it is their tradition to be prepared for war. In the same night, Grendel's mother came to Heorot. The warriors felt the danger of her arrival. Upon entering the hall, Grendel's mother was welcomed by the warriors with their weapons prepared for battle. After being seen, she tried to escape, but before escaping, she killed one of the guards and fled. That guard was actually Hrothgar's most trusted man. His name is Ashir. While fleeing, she took Grendel's blood-covered hand, and an outcry came from Heorot. Beowulf was not present because the reward that was given to him was presented in another place. Upon hearing the news, the king was devastated over Ashir's death. The next day, Hrothgar and his men followed the trails of Grendel's mother. Hrothgar and his men went to allot a path and had a rest. Then, they saw a bloody water. At the sea cliff, their anger seems to have reached their peak as they saw Ashir's head. Beowulf told Hrothgar if he ever loses his life while serving him, he will protect his warriors and take his treasure to Hygelac, the king of his home. Beowulf dived into the water without caring about his life, but Grendel's mother quickly knew someone was exploring her home, as she was guarding it for 100 years. Grendel's mother attacked him but failed due to the might of his body. Beowulf arrived at the hall and swung his sword at her, but it could not harm her. Beowulf threw his sword on the ground and continued to fight using his might. As their fight continues, Beowulf saw a sword made by the giant, but is too big to carry. He took the giant's sword and swung it to Grendel's mother, which broke her neck and fell to the ground. He rejoiced as he accomplished to slay Grendel's mother. Back in the surface, the warriors saw blood in the water. They stared at the water with a sick heart. They wished but did not hope to see Beowulf. Meanwhile, in the hall, Beowulf saw Grendel's lifeless body and slashed it with the giant's sword. The body easily split into two considering his might and the defenseless corpse. Beowulf tried to retrieve the sword, but the sword melted, and he did not take any treasure in the hall. Beowulf came back and emerged from the water. His warriors rejoiced because him coming back means it is his victory, and it took 4 men to carry Grendel's head with a spear. During the celebration in Heorot, Hrothgar and Beowulf talked about how to be a good king. After some time, the king sought his bed. The guards attended to every needs of the warriors. The morning arrived and the warriors are eager to go home. The story continues as Hygelac, the king of Beowulf's home, and his son died, which made Beowulf the king and ruled for 50 winters. In a place unknown to man, a dragon was guarding a hoard of treasure. One day, a thief stumbled upon the treasure and stole a large decorated cup from the dragon. The dragon did not tolerate the deed. However, the thief did not do it by his own accord, but was driven by need. The man was a fugitive and in need of a place to hide. The dragon found the hoard of treasure opened, while the thief took the cup to the king and asking for peace, which was granted later. The cup was examined and identified as a work of ancient men. The dragon saw the trails of the thief. He searched the whole cave, but there was no man. He realized that the golden cup was gone. The dragon waited for the night. When the night arrived, the dragon came out of the hoard and started to burn houses. Beowulf learned the situation because his house, the Hall of the Geats, was also burned. He feared that he angered God and is facing divine punishment because he thinks he broke a commandment. Upon hearing the situation, the king planned for revenge. On their way to the dragon, Beowulf reminisces of how he became the king. After returning, the kingdom was given to him by the queen because the queen did not believe the prince can protect the country. However, Beowulf refused because he doesn't want to lord over his king's son. The prince was protected and given counsel by Beowulf. However, the prince helped the banished men. Because of that, the prince was sentenced to death by sword strokes. Later on, Beowulf avenged the prince by the later days. Beowulf alone entered the cave to fight the dragon. Both sides has no intention for friendship. Upon entering the cave, Beowulf and the dragon immediately fought. After a short while, Beowulf's equipments are destroyed. The dragon came out of the cave and spread fire everywhere around him. Everyone fled to the woods to save their lives. A warrior named Wiglaf saw Beowulf suffering. He gathered his courage, grabbed his shield, and drew his sword. He charged regardless of his first time in a war. He said many things while charging, such as, their king chose his best men for his expeditions. He chose to fight alone because he performed the most feats among men. Now that their king is in need of good warriors, let us go to him. He also said that, may you accomplish all well, as you did in your youth, as I have heard tell. Don't surrender the glory of your life. Defend now with all your strength. Your brave deeds I will help. The dragon angrily came to Beowulf upon hearing those words. He bit his neck and the blood gushed out in waves. Wiglaf helped Beowulf at the cost of his hand getting burned. Beowulf came back to his senses and drew his battle knife and struck the dragon in the middle. After that, the dragon started to show weakness. After the dragon was slain, Beowulf's body started to weaken due to his sustained injuries. Beowulf spoke with Wiglaf about his regret of him not having sons to succeed, of his regret killing a kinsman. He ordered Wiglaf to take some treasure and bring them to him. Wiglaf took anything that he can carry: giant goblets, golden dishes, helmets, and sword. Wiglaf returned in a hurry, fearing that his king is dead. Beowulf spoke of his last word. He wants to give the treasure to the people. He also gave Wiglaf his golden necklace, gold-trimmed helmet, ring, and meal. He said, "Use them well, because you are the last remnant of our kinship." After saying those words, Beowulf has passed away. All of the people decided that all Beowulf's treasure will go with his funeral. No one will take anything as a token, because no more valiant warriors will protect their kingdom. All the treasure in the cave guarded by the dragon was sealed with a spell, unless God chooses a fitting man for them to receive. At Beowulf's funeral, the Geats mourned to their lord. He was the mildest, the gentlest, and the kindest to his people. Also, he was the most eager for eternal fame.
Now that's all about the story of Beowulf. Now let's move to the discussion about Caesura and Kennings.
So what is a Caesura? Caesura is a stop or pause in metrical line, often marked by punctuation or by grammatical boundary, such as phrase and clause. So let me give you some examples of Caesura. So the first example is the line, "I war with the wind. With the waves I wrestle." So the Caesura in this example comes between the word wind and with, because it separates the two clauses. Another example is the famous line from William Shakespeare's play Hamlet, "To be or not to be? That is the question." The Caesura in this line comes between the words be and that, because it also separates the two clauses. So all in all, a caesura occurs in most lines poetry to break the line into chunks of meaning, to extend meanings, to contrast ideas, to produce rhythmic effects, and etc. Now what is a kenning? A kenning is a figure of speech in which two words are combined in order to form a poetic expressions that refer to a person or a thing. So an example of kenning is the term whale road. Whale road is a kenning for the sea. In fact, one could say that every kenning involves an implied simile, which is whale road. The sea is like a road for whales.
Now that we've learned what is Caesura and Kennings, that's it for my report. I hope everyone listened well and have a good day, everyone.